And now we're into the part we call the after party. So this is a casual time. We let our shirts down.
Yeah.
We would take off our ties if any of us wore them. But thankfully,
where's the alcohol?
Yeah, let's get the booze. Let's get the booze going here.
I think Dr. Oates brought the boozer with. It's on Leia showed up too. Maybe she has some. But yeah, so I mean, now this is more informal, more conversational. If anyone wants to hop on, I know Dr. Oates has been commenting a lot. Sarah Benight's been commenting, and Dr. Waldron as well. So feel free. There's an extra seat. We can rotate people through. If you have questions or comments, feel free to join. The one I wanted to ask, to kick off the after party, was how much do you think MACRA is going to hijack, and I use that term appropriately, your development cycle, your programming development cycle, because you're both from EHR vendors, and Meaningful Use hijacked it almost completely from what I saw for almost every vendor. What do you think MACRA's impact will be on your development cycle? Dr. Tom, you want to start?
Sure. Well, let's not forget we still have MU and PQRS adjustments to make in the product, and I'm sure Dr. Sherling would agree that that in itself is a lot of work. And now we want to look at all the analytics, population health, risk stratification, segmentation, patient engagement issues that all go along with, really executing well against the value-based care. Those are all new pieces of technology we need to develop and or bolt on, maybe through partnerships. And then the service lines that go with that. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. It's never a dull moment around here, and I'm sure it's the same for other vendors. I would love more time to get this stuff done because it does take time to manage and actually develop good code. So the tight timeframes are problematic. But as a company that's cloud-based on a new layer of technology, it's easier for us and say other vendors who are kind of stuck with old legacy, huge code bases and kind of older tech. So it's challenging. I'd like more time, but I don't think we're going to get it.
Right before this blab, I got a tweet from PM Robinson. She said, current program takes about 15 bloody clicks just to complete an MSPQ, clearly designed by sadists. And obviously it's hard to generalize since there's 300 EHR vendors, but the reality is, one, there's a lot of clicks. We know government regulation is, but two, to Dr. Tom's point, there hasn't been enough time to design it well so that it just happens. That's a real challenge, especially across 300 vendors. No doubt a lot of them have fallen short. And I know that's, dear to the heart of Dr. Sherling as far as how do we reduce the number of clicks and how do we capture data seamlessly. I imagine that's your goal with developing these products, right?
Absolutely. I think our goal is just to, yes, we're spending a lot of development cycles, just like Tom, on the analytics platform, population health, the metrics for, users, just to see where they stand. But, we're kind of happy because we just finished, we had this nice little year break where we're trying to get all the things that our users actually really want done for the next reimbursement regulation hits.
Yeah.
So it's like this nice little vacation for us that we can actually design the system that we want to design that helps user experience that doctors want and care about until this next wave hits. So we were looking forward to building all of these amazing things until we're told what else we have to build.
It's so funny you say that because obviously I'm in Hawaii. I've been going to the beach with my kids, and it's kind of, they haven't been to the ocean that much, and so they're not used to these big waves that are smashing them. And one time I asked my daughter, I said, "Did you feel safe out there? Were you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, except when it came multiple waves at the same time, and then it was pretty hard." And I think that we were all in that breathing period, right? Right before MACRA's proposed rule came out, everyone was like, "Yeah." I almost feel like I could focus on what the customer really wants as opposed to some government regulation. And before that, ICD-10, before that, Meaningful Use 2 and Meaningful Use 1 and EHR certification. And it's like, but no, MACRA comes and the next wave keeps coming, right?
Yeah, and then there's shorter intervals. And notice the waves are getting bigger and there's less time to get your head out of the water for the next one.
Yeah.
We're talking about, like some of these small practices. I think there's this this other interesting parallel of small EHR companies being swallowed up by like, all of these investments. It takes millions of dollars just to build these things, and I'm just glad that we got in when we did, because I don't know how we would start this company today.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
I don't think we could.
Yeah.
Do you think MACRA is going to force more of that consolidation between EHR vendors?
I think it kind of has to.
I think so. Yeah, I think you'll see a shift away from client-server-based technologies towards cloud-based technologies like Kareo and Modernizing Medicine, where we have the ability to be more nimble. We can push improvements out much quicker. We can show doctors where they stand because we have one database that sits across many instances or many sites. And that's what you kind of need for this new paradigm of data sharing, of benchmarking. So I see some of the older technologies just being not able to give their customers what they need in MACRA.
Yeah, or even guys on new tech platforms that can't afford to spend the money without having significant revenue upside in developing these new technologies that are required. So it's definitely going to thin the herd, I would imagine.
It's kind of scary from a small practice standpoint. If you've ever been through one of those acquisitions, it's inevitable that you got to leave, right? It's pretty rare that they acquire software and then keep it, or if they do, they sunset one or the other, right? It's just a question of when.
Yeah, you got to pick stronger vendors to align yourself with, just so you have some longevity. Definitely.
Wow, that's a whole nother issue that I think people are that scares small practices.
Yeah, but I think the good news is there are several companies, Modern, Med, and Kareo, that really do have good track records and do offer what I consider strong value props to the small practice or independent practices. And so there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just you got to be selective and be careful.
Yep.
The other good thing about cloud-based technologies is that because it's a subscription, you don't have to invest like Rolls-Royce dollars into this technology and then not feel that it's not usable. You can kind of just see how it's going, month in, month out, try it out for yourself and see if it works. That's small practice friendly. And so even though we're investing millions of dollars into building all these things, practices can try them for a couple $100s a month and then, see how it works. And so I think even though we're both getting bigger, we're able to support these practices. I think we still have a small practice mentality. We know what it's like being, physicians, and I think that helps us understand our customers better.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think small practices are trying to figure out what to do. Whether it's, I think that, the biggest challenge is they're getting, if they have someone waving some money at them in employment and they can just do away with it. And even more scary is the new physicians. I know a lot of the people I know coming out of med school don't even think about starting their own practice. So, while the existing small practices may survive, if the future generation isn't brave enough to start their own small business, their own practice, then it's going to die just by attrition anyways, which I think may be the bigger challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point.
We've seen this before, though. This record has played before, like in the 80s with HMOs and consolidation. And doctors, we're such an individualistic bunch. Like, we don't like to be managed. We don't like to be told what to do. And I just think that, physician satisfaction in these larger practices is going to plummet, because they're going to be told how many patients they need to see a day. They're going to be told how to document. They're going to be not incented, so they can't make more. They're salaried now, so they can, no matter how hard they work, they can't make more or less. And you'll see the cycle repeat itself. I think some people will break away, start their new practices again, and I think we'll see it again. I think it's the technology that has to catch up. We have to serve our physicians. We have to make sure that they can practice medicine, which is what we're trained to do, not be, pencil pushers or, data entry clerks. And once that happens, I think we'll see this break down again. let's see what the 2016 data shows on quality. Let's see what, let's see how many small practices do it then.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll come up.
The pendulum does often swing kind of consistently from one end to the other. So some of that swing may involve, schism in healthcare to like a VIP healthcare system versus a non-VIP. Some people think, well, you can have either huge organizations doing practicing medicine and or concierge docs at a high, it's like a expensive attorney or a first class seat on the aircraft, right? Or a capitalist society, it could certainly absorb that. But, we'll see.
The other dynamic, though, that's interesting is the kind of super groups, which I actually first learned about with a company Modernizing Medicine acquired, GMed, where these specialties are getting together and creating super groups to essentially maintain their autonomy as small practices, but be able to battle against the large entity that won't work with them. So I think that's another interesting strategy. And then it's also interesting that in the MACRA legislation, they asked for feedback on virtual groups, which they said will not go into effect in 2017, but could in the future. What do you think about virtual groups and that kind of, these super groups that are forming?
I think that's the nice balance between autonomy and, being able to, navigate these waters. Like, if they truly are virtual, but, doctors can kind of manage their own practice, maybe that's the nice compromise that kind of keeps everything, a level playing field. I think if you get rid of competition, I think that's bad. I think, in all other industries, like, once competition's gone and you have this mega group, I think people aren't going to be as incentive to work as hard to follow up with the care. They'll see their 14 patients in a half day and call it quits. And, they won't care to take that add-on, even if they have that rash or that eye problem, because they get paid the same amount anyway. And so if you want that high level of customer service that's in so many American industries, then I think competition's good. And I think we'll see a counterbalance. If one specialty gets too big or there's just a few mega groups, the doctors in them, the founding doctors of the mega groups, they get paid, so they're happy. But all the runts like me, get paid the same amount, whether we see 10 or 20 or 30, 40 patients. We're not going to be satisfied with that for too long. And I think that we'll break out.
Melissa offered the Kaiser model and saying that they do offer incentives and they're starting to incentivize more on clinical outcomes. But I think Kaiser's kind of its own world almost, but because they have more of a revenue model that matches that, it aligns better. So I don't know how that compares to the large organizations. What were you going to say, Dr. Tom?
It's interesting. I think there's a lot of power and potential leverage with that virtualized reporting. If you think about it, you could have like a dating site for docs that say, look, I'm great at quality, but I'm not good at this measure over here, or my population's so narrow, I can't really get broad outcome data that's in my favor because a couple bad apples are just killing my numbers. And they could then partner with another guy, virtualized across the web that has, high numbers in other areas. So there's ways to actually kind of create these virtual networks of outstanding outstanding reporting by kind of aggregation. So I think there's some potential there to really help the docs balance, and that could be pretty interesting. We'll see what happens.
It could also shut out those docs that aren't performing well, right? I mean, which in some ways would be good. I guess the question is, the eternal question of, I have the most unhealthy patients, right? That's why my numbers are low. It's not because I'm a bad doc, right?
Right.
Which is a challenge.
It's hard to normalize that, but there should be ways to try to get to that.
Well, good stuff. Well, any final thoughts on MACRA and legislation, where healthcare is headed for small practices? How about Dr. Tom? You can go first.
Well, I think the overall transition from fee-for-service to value-based care is a positive one. I think if we could allow them to make that transition without too much disruption, and obviously technology and services have a role here, as does education, I'm very positive that small practice will respond in a favorable light. And again, it's kind of up to us as EHR and IT vendors in that space to really develop stuff that does enable that kind of transition to occur. But I think that Dr. Sherling and I both feel like we can get there, and we're very hopeful that we can assist these guys in making that transition. So I'm positive, cautiously optimistic at this point.
Great.
I completely agree. We need to be the cure for the small practice. We're in it with you guys because our customer base is small practices, and we want to make sure they succeed. And so in order for us to succeed, they need to succeed. And the way we make them succeed is by empowering them with the tools they need, whether it's, measuring quality or providing analytics software for them to not only meet the requirements, but to do better than their larger practices. That would make me, give me the most satisfaction.
And my take is I'm excited for technology. I think technology still could impact healthcare in massive ways that we talked a lot about, right? Communicating with patients, follow up with patients, analyzing patients, understanding who needs your help, understanding which patients need your help, understanding how well the doctor's performing. Those are all exciting improvements. I am not so excited about government regulation. And I'd summarize the comments that people submitted as appropriate to most government regulation, which everyone wants less when it applies to them and more when it applies to other people. So that seems to be the message. But that's MACRA. I'm doing a webinar next week on MACRA that will dive into more of the details. Maybe I know Leia's on the video, so maybe she could throw a link in there if she wants to the webinar. But I want to thank so much my guests, Dr. Tom Giannulli from Kareo and Dr. Michael Sherling from Modernizing Medicine. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone, for watching live.
Thank you.